The Blitz, the German bombing campaign against Britain that had followed the Battle of Britain, saw the Luftwaffe pummel London and other major centres from early September 1940 to May 1941. London was badly damaged. In the 57 days and nights from the 7th of September 1940 onwards, the Luftwaffe came on 56 of them, resulting in huge amounts of damage, and 2 particularly heavy raids. A large raid on the 29th of December 1940 triggered a firestorm known as the Second Great Fire of London, and another on the night of the 10th to 11th of May 1941. At the same time, German bombers hit Liverpool, Hull, Bristol, Cardiff, Portsmouth, Plymouth, Southampton, Swansea, Belfast and Glasgow, as well as the industrial centres of Birmingham, Coventry, Manchester and Sheffield. The Blitz resulted in more than 40,000 British civilians dead, about half of them in London, and in the capital alone more than 1 million homes were destroyed or damaged.
A thousandfold revenge was Coventry. On the night of November 14th, £1 million of bombs were dropped on the city. Coventry was smashed as flat as Warsaw and Rotterdam.
However, with Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, the Blitz fizzled out, and the German Air Force was largely sent east or to other theatres of war. Then, in April and May 1942, in response to RAF attacks on Germany, Hitler ordered the Luftwaffe to bomb Britain again in large numbers. This was the so-called Baedeker Blitz, named after the Baedeker holiday guidebooks that saw the Germans deliberately target historic cities, using high explosive and plenty of incendiaries to try and maximize destruction. This tit-for-tat campaign saw the bombing of Canterbury, Bath, Exeter, Norwich and York, killing over 1,600 civilians and damaging or destroying 50,000 homes and many culturally important buildings. But the Luftwaffe couldn't sustain the Baedeker Blitz, as demands on its aircraft elsewhere forced the transfer of these assets away, and the German Air Force settled down into occasional small-scale attacks or nuisance raids. In January 1943, an attempt was made to bomb London in some numbers. This was because, on the 16th of January 1943, the RAF had bombed Berlin for the first time since November 1941. The Germans wanted revenge against London. The night of the 17th to 18th of January, 2 waves of German bombers, one of 40 aircraft in the first wave and 50 in the second, attacked London. The crews ordered to target the King George V docks, the West India docks, and a railway complex on the Isle of Dogs, all in East London. However, British air defences were very good by this stage of the war, and combined with bad weather, many of the crews were inexperienced and fell for British decoys, such as decoy fires, to trick Luftwaffe crews into dumping their bombs onto harmless targets. And huge numbers of searchlights and heavy anti-aircraft fire convinced many of the German crews to dump their bombs and head for home. Of 115 tons of bombs that were dropped on Britain, only 43 tons actually fell on the target, London. 60 fires were started, and a power station in Greenwich was severely damaged. The Germans in return lost 6 aircraft. A decision was then taken that the next so-called vengeance raid would be quite different. It was realized that the attacks needed to outsmart the British defenses, the radar, the barrage balloons, the anti-aircraft guns, searchlights and decoys that made night attacks so difficult. The answer was to attack in broad daylight, a seemingly foolish notion considering British air defences, as radar and ground observers would easily vector RAF defensive fighters onto lumbering streams of bombers. But the Germans had one aircraft type that could be used to outwit even these defences: the single-seat, single-engine fighter, in this case the Focke-Wulf FW190. In the fighter-bomber role, the FW190, nicknamed the Butcher Bird, had been proving quite successful as a nuisance raider against south coast British towns. In so-called tip-and-run raids, a dozen or more FW190s would hammer across the English Channel at very low altitude, below radar detection, to pop up and bomb and strafe English coastal towns without warning, and then run for home before RAF fighters could react. What would happen if a group of FW190s used the same tactic to attack London? 3 days after the largely unsuccessful night bombing attack on East London, on the 20th of January 1943, 28 FW190s of the 10th Staffel of Jagdgeschwader 26, each carrying a 500-kilogram bomb, took off from bases in northern France and dashed across the English Channel at wave-top height, escorted by flights of Messerschmitt Bf 109s. British radar did not detect the raid, which crossed the English coast at Beachy Head at high speed, hammering along at tree-top height towards East London. The British defensive barrage balloons that protected London were not fully operational at this point, owing to the fact a training exercise was taking place. Also, no air raid alert was given, and no air raid sirens sounded in London as the 190s approached. Supporting the operation by creating a diversion, several 190s had peeled off as they crossed the coast to bomb and strafe the town of Maidstone in Kent, just another German tip-and-run nuisance raid. The diversion worked. No one suspected that the Germans would send a swarm of single-seat fighter bombers all the way to London. The 10th Staffel was part of Jagdgeschwader 26, or Fighter Wing 26, commanded by famed Ace and Knight's Cross with Oak Leaves holder Colonel Joseph Pips Priller, called Pips due to his small stature, standing only 5 feet 4 inches tall. Leading the actual raid was the commander of the 10th Staffel, Oberleutnant Paul Keller. Due to no air raid alert being sounded, the people of London were going about their normal business. It was lunchtime. The streets were full of people, some on their lunch breaks, women shopping, the schools full of children. The light anti-aircraft guns that protected the city from low-altitude raiders also had no time to bring their guns to bear on the FW190s. They were caught completely unprepared, and the German aircraft now streaked over the capital, releasing bombs on particular buildings they had either been briefed to attack or on targets of opportunity. The raid split up as it reached London, attacking targets in Lewisham, Surrey Docks, Deptford and Bermondsey and elsewhere. There was no resistance, and the German pilots bombed and strafed to their heart's content. 4 RAF barrage balloon sites in Lewisham were shot up, while another 190 used its cannons to set a gas holder alight at Sydenham. In Greenwich, one FW190 precisely bombed the President's house at the Royal Naval College, while 3 more fighters scored direct bomb hits on the Deptford West Power Station, starting a huge blaze that required 30 fire engines to bring under control. The most notorious strike was when Hauptmann or Captain Heinz Schumann dropped his bomb on Sandhurst Road School in Catford, catching the teachers and pupils having their lunch. Whether Schumann deliberately bombed a school or not has never been settled. However, 38 children and 6 teachers were killed, and over 60 children and a number of other teachers injured. More seemingly indiscriminate attacks were made by the FW190s. One bomb was dropped in Oscar Street in Deptford, killing 17 people, including women and children. A direct hit on the Chichester pub on Evelyn Street, Deptford, killed 9, while machine gun and cannon shells cut down many people as the FW190s howled over, firing at anything they could see. For example, machine gun fire injured 12 pedestrians in Glenfarg Street in Catford. 15 people were killed in Bermondsey. As the German planes broke off their attacks and headed for home, the RAF began to react. On reaching the coast, 3 of JG-26's FW190s would be shot down, along with 4 Messerschmitt Bf109s that were part of the escort out over the English Channel. But it remained obvious to everyone that if an alert had been sounded, the number of casualties would have been minimal. The 20th of January 1943 attack demonstrated also that there was a gap in Britain's defences, but one which was very difficult to close due to the unorthodox nature of the German attack. Interestingly, the same day as the Focke-Wulf 190s howled over London, a lone Belgian RAF pilot at the controls of a No. 609 Squadron Typhoon did a very similar thing when he shot up Gestapo headquarters in Brussels, in Belgium, against orders on this occasion. See my video about this amazing exploit, link in the end screen. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon, details in the description box below.